and grab those for the enjoyment of viewers, which is
Tremendous.
what matters the most. So,
Am I going to be able
Lauren,
to see how many people are watching at the same time?
you
I don't use Riverside much, truth be told.
you can, yeah. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this in Riverside, but there's a chat button in Riverside. You
Yep,
click that. When people start chatting in the live studio, you should be able to see that in Riverside directly. If
fair
you're
enough.
not able to, for whatever reason, you can always go to our YouTube channel as well and just like
Yep,
look at the chat natively on the YouTube
I
channel.
can see it. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Yeah. So, like if I type GM here, like that should populate in the Riverside chat.
Let's have a gander.
We'll see. We'll see if it works. Um, cool. Well, let's go ahead and get started then. I'll keep an
Yep.
eye on the chat. If I see anything interesting, I'll be sure to relay it to you. Lawrence, welcome to Rehash. I'm so happy to have you here. This has been a long time coming. I mean, a long time in the works, and we finally made it happen.
Thank you very much. No, it's good to be here at, like I said, 9 p.m., right? Waiting for the kid to scream, the dog to bark, the house to fall apart in some various way. I don't know what's going to come.
I'm super excited. I love not knowing what's to come. That's why I work in crypto. So I can't wait to see what happens. The more chaotic, the better.
Yep.
So I got to start out by asking you, this is, people are going to be really upset with me if I don't start by asking you this, but my first question to you is it vegan?
Of course it is, if consent is given. I won't be elaborating further, and I think we should move on to the next question
I
immediately.
completely agree. I completely agree. So I want to ask you a little bit about your background. This is my first time speaking with you, even though we've been in the
It
same
is.
group chat for a little bit and had some interactions, but I haven't had the opportunity to speak to you before. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. You have a PhD and a JD. What is your like goal in life? Like, are you trying to be a professional student? Are you going to pursue another PhD after this? Like, what's going on?
The funny thing is that the answer to that was very nearly yes. I think had my daughter not arrived, and now it seems like life is very much in the way of like stopping me from doing that because my wife will probably skin me like a goat. I always thought I was going to become and stay an academic, and now it seems like life keeps throwing things at me which compel me to go and learn a field in depth. And the way that I do that best is through like university level study. So, background wise, like the academic lens of it was I did a maths and computer science undergraduate. Fell in love with the Haskell programming language, so it's a miracle that I don't work at Cardano, despite applying to work there twice. They just weren't interested in me.
Wow.
I think the one that I also have to say is that I did meet my wife at university, and she was staying there for another 2 years to finish medical school, so I was looking for reasons to stay. So it was a really easy sell for me to stay at Nottingham with my PhD supervisor to complete a PhD. And in the last few months of doing that, I worked on something that looked a lot like the EVM around the same time that it was being developed, although I didn't know this at the time. So I finished that. I tried looking for academic jobs, bombed out of a postdoc position at Cambridge University in the final two, which I'm still not salty about. It has been over 10 years and I'm still not mad. I got a job offer in banking and I moved out to Singapore, which was lovely. It was a wonderful 4.5 years. I realized I didn't know what the front desk were talking about in the bank, so I did a master's in financial engineering. And then after that, I like that finished with like a thesis in index fund optimization, like real exciting like conversation line there. And I met my co-founder at Wildcat now, Dylan Keller, after he deployed and founded Indexed Finance, which was in the same vein. So I joined him, and then about 6 months later, it was attacked for $16 million. And there were no clear answers there about like where our legal status lay. And so after spending a quarter million Canadian dollars in legal fees and still not really knowing what was up, I figured it would just be more sensible to go to law school myself so I could understand things better. Which is, I realize, is a deeply autistic thing to say. Like, no one normal says that, like, that's the thing. Oh, I'll just go do 2 years at university.
Hey, you know what? The fact that you realize that makes you not as autistic as you think you are.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I guess I fall under accidental professional students. There are more things I'd study if I got the chance, but a life is only so long, and I have a growing family now, so like, there's only really so much time I have to myself.
Yeah, no, totally. And the good news for you is that, with AI now, you can use GPTs. There are other ways to learn without going to university and getting another whole degree and spending a ton of money. So that's the good news
You
on the
say spend
horizon.
a ton of money. I don't think you're quite remembering how little it costs to go to university here in the UK. It's
Oh,
about
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I'm US based, and so
I,
my
I, I want to call
perception
it.
of that is totally
Yeah, I think
wrong.
it's going to be about 15,000 US dollars a year, no matter what university you go to, which is nice if you have it.
In the
Um,
US or the UK?
no, in the UK, I realize in
Oh,
the
oh,
US
oh, oh, okay.
it's a six-figure job. I mean, my
Yeah,
wife's
yeah,
in significant debt as it is for medical school, like every other medic in the UK.
yeah.
Um, this nutty crypto stuff managed to let me pay for law school myself, which was a joy, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes the whole situation different. Yeah, like if university didn't cost that much, I could see myself being a professional student for life as well. But here it's just impractical. You're going to go bankrupt,
Yep.
unless you're some sort of
Um,
genius that's getting a full ride to like all these universities.
I don't know if you there was a story that popped up on Twitter about I want to call it about a month ago of a guy who said that he was really looking forward to like Kamala Harris to do like student debt forgiveness, and
Yeah.
then he showed his student debt and he'd run up 1 million, and he'd done like two JDs, he like a bunch of master's degrees. Like I think that's really like a step apart as professional student. Like that's just a dude who's coping because he
Yeah.
likes to be able to like sit in a library. Whereas I think ever since I graduated my PhD, I've always worked while I studied. Um, Again, in a real kind of tell, like it's a hobby. Like it's a relaxing thing to do.
That's a really nerdy thing to say, but
You
again,
know?
honestly, like I'm not one to judge. Like I went to law school straight out of undergrad, mostly
Yep.
because I didn't know what to do, and I just wanted to delay having to be an adult and having responsibilities. So I was like, let me stay in school forever. It's honestly like where I live now, a lot of the people I live with, we say, have like Peter Pan syndrome, where they just want
Yep.
to, like, I live in a very outdoorsy place. They just want to go climb mountains. They just want to go hiking. They just want to like snowboard, be like ski bums.
Yep.
And that's their way of delaying adulthood. And, like you and me, like our way of delaying adulthood is just staying in school forever. If we
Yep.
can be a student forever, then somehow that makes us feel like maybe we don't have to be an adult fully just yet.
It's true. And I think the one thing that I've also really enjoyed kind of about crypto writ large is even though it seems like the pride on anonymity seems to be dropping away a little bit, and I'll talk about this a little bit as we kind of, if we get into talking about kind of impacts on DeFi in future.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I've never really relied on credentialism either, and I quite like that. Like, it's one of those things where every so often people find out they're like, oh, he's a doctor. And I go, well, yeah, I used to be a really cringe guy who had the title in my Twitter profile. The Twitter profile has had a fundamental, like, root and branch refactor from being like an academic profile account to what it is now.
Yeah.
So, like you can see, it's slowly chipping away. Right now, it's all lowercase. Now it's an AI generated picture.
Yeah.
Now I call people retards on the internet. It's like a real kind of like dialing up to 11.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to be an attorney as well. That's how I started my career. So I did a full 180 as
Yep.
well. I mean, I'm not quite at your level just yet with your level of shit posting and things like that, but definitely did a bit of a 180. But your Twitter bio is actually a good place for us to start. You're a scholar, an absurdist, a disappointment. Do you really believe that? I don't think your mom would agree.
I have an incredibly Irish mother who does not have a problem with telling me what she thinks in a rage.
Fair
So
enough.
all of these things are quotes, I guarantee you.
Okay, fair enough. What else do we have? A creator at Wildcat Finance. Why do you call yourself a creator at Wildcat?
CEO of Wildcat Labs seems very cringe. Guy at seems too dismissive. Um, oh no, honestly, I couldn't tell you. It
Yeah,
just works.
creator, just like first thing that pops to mind is like a content creator of sorts.
I do
Like,
think I think Hayden Adams has creator of the Uniswap protocol in his bio, so I might have
oh,
subconsciously
okay,
read
okay.
something from that. I couldn't. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's totally fair. And then what else do we have? We have a spat at Euler Finance. Euler? Is it
Ooh,
Euler? Euler?
it is Euler, but you should say
Euler.
Euler for the rest of the time that you're doing this podcast
Okay, I'm
and
down.
forever from now on.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's what the E in Lawrence E Day stands for,
Yeah,
right? It's
it
Lawrence
stands for Lawrence
Euler.
Euler Day.
Yeah, Lawrence Euler Day. That is exactly what I thought. What does the E stand for, by the way?
It's Ethereum. No, it's Edward. Is my middle name.
Edward. Okay,
Yes.
that is the one guess that I haven't seen on the internet ever. I've seen everything else except Edward.
I don't know how many more names start with an E, truth be told, but admittedly, I'm not thinking about it. I'm in this weird phase right now because we're expecting twins, and we don't know the genders yet. We're hoping to,
Congratulations. I didn't know that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, real surprise. Like within 2 days of moving into this new house, my wife's work, we kind of got rocked by the oh, by the way, you're pregnant. By the way, it's twins. To which, the only real response is pardon. But as part of this, we're thinking of boy and girl names, and it turns out it's really hard to think of two girl and two boys names. I'd have used Neve as a name, but I've wasted that on my cat. So I'm not. I need to give worse names to my animals. My last cat was called Cat. I should have just stuck with that.
You should have, yeah. No, you really should have. My dog is called Toby, and I really like that name. But now I'm never going to be able to name him Toby because my dog is called Toby.
So I have a dog called Molly. Same story.
Yeah, you could name your kid Toby since it's
All right.
your dog.
I'll name my daughter Toby if you name your son Molly. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Fantastic.
Sounds great. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to exploits and hacks. So this is one thing that you're infamous for. I'm not really sure, depending who you're talking to, for your alleged crypto protocol hacks. So first of all, is this true? Have you hacked a bunch of crypto protocols?
To all the federal agents listening to this podcast, of course it's true. I have no regrets, and good luck convicting me in court. To everyone else, when I started Solidity development in 2017, I used to participate in attempts to either fix or, failing that, ransack contracts that were irrevocably busted. So back in that day, which was again pre-Uniswap, pre-Maker, pre-Flashbots, it wasn't really things like we had to worry about things like LP collapse for tokens, and the ecosystem was so small at the time that returning funds to people was generally as easy as like just going through a transaction list and just returning funds by hand. I think like maybe once or twice I had flashes of keeping funds. Like $1 million is still a lot of money, but like the hat's always been extremely white.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that like this bit of Laurence being this notorious black hat has its origins in being the victim of a protocol hack. So after the index attack, which was October 2021, Bloomberg ran a story about the incident and had a headline which was, bear with me, "The math prodigy whose hack upended DeFi won't give back his millions." Right? And so this was talking about this 18-year-old kid who'd done it. And so that headline ran right next to a photo of myself, since there wasn't a photo of the attacker to use. So that got syndicated around, and suddenly sites were running that headline with my photo. Bloomberg will like get syndicated out to like South African sites, Indian sites, so on. They'll just run headline photo, like first photo in the article. So I started getting messages from people I went to school with in South Africa going, "Laurence, what? Like, pardon?" And it didn't really dawn on me what was happening for the longest time. A while after that, I'd been joking with Alicia, who was at the time, the once and present head of marketing at Euler, that I was going to destroy her protocol for calling me the worst trader alive. I'd also then said, my face when anything happens to Euler within 6 weeks, and lo and behold, within 6 weeks of me saying so, 200 million gone. So like that's pretty much set the reputation in stone.
Wow. Yeah.
I woke up one day from a midday nap. My daughter was 2 weeks old, and so we are just having a horrible time when it comes to sleep.
Right.
And I wake up to a vibrator next to me, and it is my phone just popping off. And I first see like a picture of Hasaka tweeting a photo of that dude standing in front of the SEC with a phone. I'm just like, I have no idea what's happening here. So it's become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts, though, because nowadays people will come to me with disclosures because they're not sure that they'll be taken seriously. And these things are generally like I'll quietly hand off after replicating to make sure they're real. Some of them are protocol related, some of them are bridges. I find it bizarre, but I do appreciate the trust that's been placed in me by random folk on the internet, given that I do have this infamy about like my bit.
Right. Yeah, that is so funny that they ran your photo. Yeah, so people out there probably still think you're like an 18-year-old hacker.
The joke that did go around, because I was wearing a tweed jacket at the time, because that's basically like my wife bought it for me and I like it. And the photographer, who was typically I lived in the middle of nowhere. So Bloomberg have like a bunch of syndicated like photographers that will go out and do stuff like take pictures of things that are interesting. Yeah. And the only person that they had in my area was a rural photographer whose job was literally just photographing sheep and farmers. And then she kind of got seconded in to do this like high-tech crypto bollocks. So she puts me next to a kind of a dilapidated like building, like an old industrial thing. And so there's this photo that goes around. If you search Bloomberg Laurence Day, you'll see it. And everyone just goes, just like, yeah, that just looks like an average 18-year-old crypto trader. Because I am 32 years old in that photo.
Wait, I just found it. That's amazing. You're in a red shirt. You're in a red dress shirt with your tweed blazer over it, standing in front of this green door that is like, the paint is coming off of this door.
It's not great where I lived, I'll tell you that.
This is amazing. I'm going to save this to my computer right now so I can use it for future things.
You are very welcome to it.
That's so great. And you're like looking off into the distance. You've got
My fly is
your
open in that
pocket.
photo, by the way. There's a full-length version of it as well, where you can see my fly is open. Just a
Oh, I gotta
hideous.
find that. I only
No,
see the
you
one-
won't. I don't think you'll see it. I think I realized afterwards when I got the long shot.
Yeah. What is the expression on your face? Like it's.
I was told to look pensive and look off into the middle distance.
Okay.
That is not an expression that I would naturally have come up with. I was
gonna
told to feel
say-
sad and confused.
Yes, I was gonna say you look like you're either trying to look pensive and deep in thought, gazing into the distance, or you are having some like serious digestive issues.
Gastrointestinal problems. I'll tell you what, Diana, it was a weird day, all right? Like, I don't want to really recall what was said or how I felt or what I looked like.
Okay, we'll move on from that. So, have you actually like white hacked protocols and obviously like returned the money, but helped protocols to develop more safe and secure practices through like checking their security?
I haven't executed anything that would be called an exploit in over 4 years. And that does mean that for the vast majority of people that like would know anything in DeFi, certainly nothing that has happened has had my fingerprints on it. I find myself that as I kind of get a bit older and pull more towards, say, like the protocol development and side of things rather than actually just writing code, I'm better at reading code than I am at writing it nowadays. So things like actually like constructing things to put together is no longer my strength. And this was about 3 weeks ago, I was in Salt Lake City with Dylan to work on something for Wildcat. I was trying to write some tests. It was probably, and I turned around to him and I said, I think this is the first time I've written Solidity in about 8 months.
Oh wow.
And let me tell you, I was bad at it, Diana. It did not go great for me. Turning to a man 10 years younger than me going, is this right? Is this right?
Yeah. So probably no more exploits incoming, because that was a question.
No, that's it. Those were the last exploits.
Yeah.
That's it. There are no more after this.
No more after this. Fair enough. What though, like through your experiences, like even back in the day, like what were some of like your biggest takeaways or learnings about protocol security? Or do you think that whatever you learned back then doesn't even apply today because so much has changed in the last 4 years?
I mean, I've still stayed abreast of things. So like I get added to war rooms. Again, I do still get people handing me kind of like disclosures of exploits. I think the main learning is you are not paranoid enough. And this is strange because normally everyone, when you talk about protocol security, I think it really splits into two camps. Audits of security of contract code itself and everything else. And audits are a slightly controversial topic because of the price points. It is not cheap to get Solidity audited because it's, there's such a limited pool of people that are truly skilled in it. So, indies can't afford really proper coverage because they can't drop 5-6 figures on reviews. That's one of the things that actually ended up affecting Indexed. We did as good a job as we can, but there was a flaw in the water. And with that said, that means that the alternative has generally been to lean on VC funding, which comes with a whole host of other problems. But I think more generally, the issues that are more pressing than smart contract security of late are down to social engineering, key management, front-end manipulation. Like it's a really, really dark forest, and it turns out like everything there is trying to kill you in a different way. I mean, what was the my memory's failing me now. What was the protocol that was done for earlier this week for a key management swap? I made a joke saying 311 was an inside job. Someone, yeah, like there'd been a malware switch
Yeah.
of three keys.
Oh,
And like that's not a problem with like contract code. That's a problem with people,
right.
and people are always the dumb part of this.
Yeah.
I'm the dumb part of Wildcat. Like so is everyone else that I work with. Um, you can get tired, you can get distracted, you can open an attachment in a moment of stupidity, and it's tiresome to be paranoid all the time. I'll tell you that because I know people that have been like active researchers, auditors, and white hats for the entire time, and it's breaking them.
Yeah. Yeah, the people problem is a tough one to solve though, because if we think about, for example, like if you get a spam link in your email now or a spam link in your text messages, people like you and me, we can instantly recognize that and know not to click it,
Yep.
right? But people like my mom, she sees that stuff and she's like, "Oh, great, let me click it.
Hell yeah.
Someone sent me a link. Hell yeah!" Like,
$50 off my car insurance. I don't even
yeah.
have a car.
Exactly, yeah. And so I don't know like what the solution is to that, like I think we can get to a point where people like you and me will see a spam link to like, connect your wallet to like this site that is clearly trying to steal your money, and we won't do it. But I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where people like our parents will recognize things like that and not get scammed.
I'll tell you for free that it can be a lot more insidious than that, Diana. You can, let's say that you know that, let's say you have a live protocol that is, it's got maybe 9 figures of TVL. You're doing X, you're doing Y, you're doing really well, and you are subsequently like perhaps doing a strategic raise, like a VC raise. If that news gets out, it is very possible. I'm not speaking from any particular experience here. I know this has happened. That you can start receiving emails that look like they have been spoofed from a VC fund. That's like written, from the address of someone that you would know, with like an email that looks real, with a PDF that says here's a term sheet, and that's malware.
Yeah.
And often perhaps in moments like that, you can get so excited. It's actually happened 3 times that I know of. I think a lot of them, like there have been a couple of these incidents reported on, say, Twitter. In that excitement of, oh my God, my work has been validated, like there's funds coming in, you will click something to see what is being offered.
Yeah.
It's not just quite like Nigerian prince level scamming. You're seeing some really dumb ones lately, kind of on the more users, like end user side of things, such as, oh, we'd like to do a KOL deal with you. Please join us in Slack. Oh, it doesn't work. Please install this driver. Like the most retarded thing you could fall for. But so that there's levels to it. It's very much a graded thing, all the way from like your mum falling for something, and let's hope that your mum is never a multi-sig signer on a DeFi protocol, much the same my mother, all the way to like just stuff that is laser pointed to like get to the ego of some exhausted engineer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen some stuff like that too. Like the social hacks are almost scarier than the technical hacks
Yeah.
now, because the social hacks are so. I've seen some that are so elaborate, and people who've been in crypto since like 2016 have fallen for them. So they're not
Yep.
like they're really like people have gotten really, really like next level with it.
Yep.
But I would imagine that there still has to be something that can be built on the back end, like on the technical side, to help at least reduce the number of scams that take place. Like, for example, if MetaMask recognizes that something is potentially dangerous, or if fake VC sends you a letter that's like, hey, here's a term sheet, we want to invest in you. There's got to be some way to check that, like to send an alert or something that says like, hey, this is unverified. So maybe
Yep.
just take like an extra second to look at this.
MetaMask and other wallets do this kind of thing lately when it comes to signing things.
Yeah.
So they use tools such as Blockade and what have you, which will say like, oh, this domain is something that we don't know about, so we're not, we're like warning extremely hard that you don't engage with it. And this can be a double-edged sword, because often, like, I mean, I've been burned by this. I've had like the Wildcat website get like flagged up on MetaMask going, this is clearly a scam. We're like, no, it's not. We're just not on the appropriate list. And of course, there's this great paradox when it comes to DeFi and permissionlessness, where, in order for that safety to be there, and that safety should be sacrosanct, the trade-off that you make is an increasing amount of centralized power in the way that you access it. So, what you're asking for here is effectively a stranglehold on RPC checks before you're allowed to send a transaction, additional scanning of your emails, and so on and so forth. And I think to a certain type of person, I won't call them libertarian, I'll call them cypherpunk. That just seems slightly unacceptable. Now, I want to loop back. You mentioned that you find some of like the social engineering attacks to be kind of more scary than the technical ones, and I think that's mostly true. And this is going to sound like a slightly kind of rooting for the bad guys take here, and I promise you it's not. If you spend, like I have and like many of us have, a life in code, there are certain attacks. Real ones will recognize polynetwork and inverse as examples of almost beautiful attacks. Like, I think you can appreciate the aesthetics and the art of what must have been needed to do it. There are some others which I'm intentionally opting not to name. And it's weird because you find yourself going, oh, god damn, people are out for like 30 million. And at the same time, you're like, this is amazing piece of code.
Yeah.
So you find yourself with this really begrudging respect for someone who absolutely needs to be in prison.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can totally see that. And that's why white hat hackers exist, right? Like we had Burb on, and she was at what, OPSEC, OtterSec?
Yeah, OtterSec, yeah.
OtterSec, yeah. OtterSec, organizations like that do white hack exploits to help people like that. I mean, if only we can take these people who are so talented and skilled and can execute these beautifully done hacks and just take them to the bright side, right?
What we need to do is we need to take people like Sam Sun, everyone at Seal 11, and Zach, and just clone them 500 times.
Yes.
I feel like we have enough money globally to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, if we're working on life extension, why can't we?
Exactly. Why not life duplication? That's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the difference?
But so I think like the question that you asked before I kind of went off on my wittering rant was kind of like what advice is there for like kind of protocols and users to stay safe? And really, again, it's again, you are not paranoid enough. Protocol wise, anyone that touches anything that like, if you're a multi-sig, or if you even have like mild upgrade powers, or even if you can change like a small parameter, hardware wallets for everything, something that you can see a simulation on, sign things on a separate machine to those that you open attachments on, always assume that you're the weak link, because you absolutely are. I spoke about this on a panel in Permissionless 3 2 weeks ago about, there's this, at what point does the responsibility move from the protocol to the user? Like, if some user just derps and does something really stupid, at what point is that's a skill issue rather than, oh, actually this protocol has bamboozled me in a malicious way. User-wise, like, use a wallet with a simulator. You use Rabby, really hoping we can get these things to MetaMask. Rescind your allowances and stop being greedy. Your 60% APR thing is probably like... that's not true, because you can loop up to 60% quite easily, and back in DeFi summer we were playing 5-6 APR figures at the time.
Right? Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, like I was just about to go into a full-throated, don't be stupid, 60% is not realistic, and I was like, no, it's not actually. We did much worse back in the day.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, it's hard to tell, like, just how paranoid do you need to be, I
always think just a little bit more than you currently are without destroying your life. I think as a user, you have an expectation that things should just work. And I think there is a set of things that you can do that make this doable. A wallet with a simulator, make sure that your allowances are rescinded for so that you don't get wrecked 3 years down the line. Use a hardware wallet, they don't cost much. And yet, when I say this, I realize that this is fundamentally limiting a huge part of we say that crypto will eat the world. Not like this, it won't.
No.
Right, if the precondition to people integrating with DeFi is that they have to, on threat of getting absolutely wrecked, have this little device that they have to sign something that's in gibberish, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't expect that level of paranoia from the masses, right?
Yeah,
Like
my
if
brother
it's
could
yeah.
not give less of a toss about any of this. It's just like, yeah, my bank app works. I have money under my mattress. If you find
Right.
out where my brother lives, by the way, do look under his mattress. He keeps a lot of money there. But yeah, like, asking him to be like, oh yeah, like you've got money in your MetaMask extension is your hardware. It's just like I do not care,
Right.
right?
And he's like part of the masses. We're talking about
Yeah,
onboarding the masses, the next billion or whatever, like the only people that are going to be willing to be paranoid enough to the
yeah,
level that you're saying we should be are the people like the 10 people that are in crypto right now.
exactly,
That's
right.
it.
Like we've capped out. I think it's very easy to forget that I think people join all the time, and I think like maybe my cynical view is that people jump into like pump.fun right now, or they're just kind of chasing memes. But again, I'm an old head now, and I'm really just kind of old man like shouting at clouds. But the type of person who kind of got unironically pulled for the tech were already that kind of like cryptographer anyway. That was kind of like romanced by the idea. I've tried speaking to people like my brother and friends, and they're just like, you could put a gun to my head and tell me I had to translate this, and I would beg you to pull the trigger. And so this sparks a conversation in West Ham earlier about like, does UX derive PMF? And the answer was like, objectively no. I was like, well, the UX is still pretty bad, right? Regardless of this.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like what was I was in I haven't had a chance to look at West Ham today. I'm sorry.
Good.
I don't know how
You did
people
well. Don't
that's
apologize to me.
I'm gonna
You
no
just
I'm
say
gonna dive into the West Ham stuff and like just how you have time to be constantly on West Ham all the time. But
by
what was
ignoring my family
by
is how.
ignoring your family? Yeah, neglecting your daughter and your
I
soon to
suppose.
come twins. That'll be the real test. How online
Yep.
are you once the twins pop out? But what was the consensus in the chat earlier about like does UX lead to PMF?
It split down the line. So you had people
Okay.
like Say Taylor who were just like, absolutely not. What are you talking about? And then thing like, well, it's. I think Ben Bash had pointed out about it's necessary but not sufficient. Like you need good UX to
Yeah.
have. Oh, well, say he's in the chat having words. Um, we'll talk about this later, buddy. I promise. Like I think the way that the conversation went was that UX will eventually be solved. PMF might not, and
Mm,
I kind of got like I mulled about this for about an hour or two, going, oh no, it's fine. Like I'm very comfortable just having like digital sovereignty of my assets, and but if that's all it is, then really, what are we doing? Um, I could witter on about this at length, but I'm choosing not to. I'm choosing to end it relatively at this stage and leaving other people, future guests, to go off about this.
I mean, I love talking about UX and I guess like even more broadly, say we never find PMF in
Yep.
crypto and it just is always this group of people that already exists. In that case, are you like, I'm out, like mission not accomplished? Or are you like, hey, maybe this is fine. Like, we're having
I mean,
fun.
I've always kind of been of the opinion that I was going to stick around. I'm a lifer anyway. Um, we've seen increases since I started, but it kind of comes in troughs and waves, right? Like if you were an engineer before FTX and then you kind of got to watch everyone leave and you're still here, you are deeply mentally ill, and you're probably not going to go get a job in a law clerk's office. I can say like no one cares about digital sovereignty, and he's right. Right, like the subset of people that do that is in like the bips. It is like 0.2%
Yeah.
of the global population. It is the people that are already here.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, most people out there are very mid curve
Yeah.
and they
So
just want to.
Pedro is saying, the mission was accomplished. Like you do have that. So I think if stable coins is all that crypto is good for, maybe that's enough.
Yeah. No, it's definitely true. I want to get into Wildcat and talk to you a little bit about Wildcat and what all of that is about. So I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know anything about Wildcat, but I asked GPT. GPT told me Wildcat is a decentralized finance protocol that allows borrowers to create customized lending markets on the Ethereum blockchain. Unlike many traditional DeFi lending platforms, Wildcat enables under under collateralized borrowing, meaning
Yep.
borrowers can access loans without having to over collateralize their positions.
Yes. So we all know Arve. We all know Euler. I'm going to keep doing this
I
every
know
time.
Euler. You know Euler. I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
Euler.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. I don't know.
We know compound, we know morpho, etc. And all of these are kind of by defensive programming and by default designed in a way that you can only like they're cross asset borrowing. You know how they work. Everyone listening to this knows how they work. I'm not going to relitigate it here. However, with that said, this is not really conducive to kind of like external growth. Like there's no hockey stick moment that comes from constraining the amount of capital that can be accessed to more than you've put in. This was one of the reasons why the original DAI, now RIP DAI, now long live USDS. This is why they moved away from the ETH only collateralized model, which is now like fundamentally seen in Liquid TV1. That you just can't scale it. I don't think that over collateralized lending is bad. I use it every day. I think it's wonderful. It's the world's greatest way of going short the US dollar, long any digital asset. But really, to kind of grow the pie, there does need to be a mechanism to be able to trust. Now, that's a controversial DeFi statement. But sometimes you do trust people. I trust the people in West Ham. I trust other friends that I have online. I know that have digital wallets with digital assets. Perhaps as if I ran a market maker firm, maybe I am well trusted, but that's dangerous because so are 3AC and Alameda Research, right? And fundamentally, this really just comes down to I am looking to borrow money and I am making a promise to you. And all that Wildcat does is facilitate these things that already exist, but putting them on chain, right? The entire reason that we had the torrid time that we did 2 years ago was because after kind of SBF's original sin of selling a bunch of staked ETH, that we started seeing dominoes falling, and a bunch of entities such as Three Arrows Capital and Genesis and so on, they were dead in the water for months, and we did not know. Because we had no insight into kind of where they stood in their balance books. Loads of them were insolvent for ages. And there's that particularly egregious example of Kyle Davies with that PDF going, he shows the PDF going, oh, this is how many assets we have and things like 2.3 million or whatever. And that's it. That's it. Fuck you. There's no more proof. And so Wildcat is an attempt at bringing things which do already exist, because these deals do happen, but they just get papered up by lawyers and outside counsel, put in a drawer, and then people wait until disagreement or disaster bring their terms out into the open, right, after a default. This is both something that we want to bring on-chain so that people can see who are the counterparties and how much are they borrowing, so that if it turns out that, like, if I default for $500,000. That's big for me. It's huge for me. It's maybe big for any kind of LP that has like provided money to my fund. Ultimately, doesn't move the needle. If Wintermute default on something that's like 9 figures, is that indicative of rot? Is it indicative that there's a black swan that we're not aware of yet? And more generally, should we be panicking, right? There's also an accessibility thing, right? I've always been like big on this access to credit and kind of venture, like any kind of venture, get out of the crab bucket opportunities are very reliant on who you know. There are opportunities out there even for like regular retail, but they generally require that you need to know who it is that you need to reach out to say, hey, I've got $50,000 I'd like to lend to you at a rate that I would consider like extremely attractive, 15, 16%. There is no mechanism for that. There is no discoverability on either side. So a borrower may not know, someone who like a DAO or someone in West Ham who does yield farming is looking to see like is there money that's available like for me to borrow based on like my reputation or any financials that I'm willing to provide or the asset that I'm trying to. They don't know about it, and people that are looking to lend capital don't know who's asking for it, because these conversations all happen in dark rooms or Telegram chats, right? Yeah. So we don't, at Wildcat, we don't make any decisions about like, you're allowed to borrow this much for that rate. You shouldn't participate or what have you. We leave all of this entirely to borrowers to decide this is what I want to borrow, this is how much of it I want to borrow, this is how much I'm willing to pay, all these other conditions and terms. They deploy their own thing, and then they just say, hey guys, if you want to extend us credit, here is a loan agreement, here are our terms and conditions, here is perhaps a way that you can gain access. So this could be anything from as minor as prove that I'm not on the OFAC sanctions list. And to be fair, it's a very brave Lazarus employee that tries to lend money after they've stolen it. But the point is there. Like, no, lads, I promise you, we can get another 15% on this if you only give me another 6 months. All the way through to things like, do you have a Coinbase verification, or do you have a ZK proof that you've signed into like a particular bank account, which is only accessible to people of certain wealth? Because ZK TLS, this zero knowledge proof of stuff, is now it's finally commercial grade. It's ready to be used. So someone, Violet posted the other day, earlier today actually, the biggest Fed in the world is going to be able to make $1 billion creating an application using zero knowledge location based services to prevent Americans from getting airdrops. It's like all of these bits of technology are finally ready to allow you to put credit on chain without kind of risking it or scoring it, but just making it available. And so in my past, when I left banking, I worked on an AI ML startup. I co-founded one. This was before AI ML was a real buzzword, where I could have raised 60 million just for like a Python script.
Yeah.
My entire life has been a story of being slightly too early, Diana.
What year was this?
This was 2019, 2020.
Okay.
This was an idea of like, you are defined by your relationships with other people and how much you trust them with your money. But maybe I trust you with $100, but you may trust someone else with $60. So perhaps I trust them with 30, or something like that. And kind of percolating that across a network and seeing like, what would this look like in an Indian village? So we developed this and we wrote it and we got some funding from places, and then the pandemic happened and we were never going to like Chennai to do any user research because no one was going anywhere.
Right.
But it was getting the opportunity to kind of bring that idea to Ethereum in a slightly different scale. Like we're not focusing on retail borrowing right now. There are other entities that are looking at doing that. We get loads of messages going, hey, we'd like to borrow on Wildcat. We'd like to get a mortgage. I'm like, that is a great idea, and I certainly think it should happen. But that is so far out on the risk curve that we can't do that right now. It's nice. Like it's what I've been wanting to do for 5 years anyway. So bringing Wildcat now onto a thing, we will see the degree of its success. But if it fails, then I don't think it's through like lack of effort on my part.
Right. Yeah. Is it live already?
Wildcat V1's been live for, I want to call it 10 months now, but it's pretty janky. It's really difficult to onboard lenders. A borrower has to say, you particular address lender, I have to get you, I'm authorizing you to lend to me. So most lenders are like, no, I'm not waiting for that. Thanks very much. Like, I'm just going to go somewhere else. So we've developed our V2. I've been posting quite a lot about it lately. That is a lot smoother, like butter compared to V1, and a lot more flexible. So that is hopefully coming out this year. I'm not going to give any further details or like times than this year, just to give myself rope to hang myself with.
Good idea.
But it's exciting, right? Credit is very boring. Compared to things like NFT fractionalization or perhaps more liberal access to dumping like pump fund clones, some of them which have like really clever mechanics, such as like being able to borrow ETH for liquidity and then return it. I'm appreciative of that. Credit, by comparison, everyone the light leaves people's eyes. But I put it to people that it is actually one of the most important things that an economic system needs to support. And it is the kind of thing that is only really deeply understood by people that either need money, make a living out of lending to it, or are financial brokers. So, it's depressing, I think. But for example, like the economic boom of the 1700s only happened because of the development of, like really basic lending instruments. The reason that the British Empire managed to go out and like wreak the terror that it did across a quarter of the globe was because of credit instruments. They could finally expand.
Yeah.
Not suggesting that I want Wildcat to become the precursor to the next global empire, although it would be nice for my bags. But it just kind of like, again, to reuse the phrase, it's that hockey stick moment. And also, if you have it on chain, it's also protective because you can start seeing how much debt is owed where, to who. And if someone falls over, is that like, is that a panic moment? Are we going back to Pordum? Or is it just kind of an incidental, all right, they misjudged some calculations. It is what it is, rip.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, like you said, credit isn't the sexiest thing to talk about, but like everyone needs everyone has like a credit score and everyone
Your
needs
life
money.
revolves around credit. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, it's like people don't want to talk about like brushing your teeth every day and like dental hygiene until you have to go get a root canal or it's like affecting your whole like bodily health, and then suddenly like you have to care about it. But
Yep.
it's really important, and so it's cool that people like you are thinking deeply about these things and trying to make it better for everybody.
And I'm far from the only one, right? There are other protocols that exist out there that are extending credit in under or over collateralized settings. So there's entities like TrueFi, Clearpool, Maple. They're all interesting. They're all slightly different. They're all tackling the same problem. It's as you say, it is good that like there are people thinking about this. I think a lot of the kind of the people that benefit are going to be like in the near term, kind of market makers and firms. What I'd really like to see is people starting to use it to perhaps replicate more state like kind of more configurable like stablecoin backing mechanisms, or ultimately to do things like if you want to lend to parties that are actually like making goods, like one of the reasons for credit is things like, oh, hey, I need operational funds to like actually like expand a bakery. It would
Yeah.
be dope as hell if you could do something like lend something on chain to somewhere in Chicago that's creating a bakery. Like, I think that rocks.
Yeah.
But there's still a couple of things that are in the way in terms of like moving funds kind of on and off chain in like a smooth way there for that to work properly, but it's coming soon.
Yeah, I hope so, because that would be super dope. Also, people in the chat are giving some financial advice. Pedro's saying putting money into Wildcat in case it creates an economic boom and ETH goes to 10 trillion.
No,
Good for you,
Bitcoin will go
Pedro.
to
I
10.
hope it works out.
Bitcoin will be going to 10 trillion and ETH will still be at $2,700.
Oh, man. All right, moving on to less depressing topics. We've got, we're coming up on time, but I definitely want to talk to you about West Ham before we let you go.
Of
West
course.
Ham. We had Dr. Nick on a couple of episodes ago, and I asked him in 5 seconds, tell me what West Ham is. So I'm going to ask you the same question.
It was a group chat for people that has no group chats, and now it's a group chat for people that don't know what they want to do with their lives.
Damn.
This is only because there are so many people in there, and it's very targeted at the people in West Ham that I can see reading this chat. That is not actually the answer I would give. West Ham was originally, as I said, it was a group chat that I created for people without group chats. And of course, when you do that, all you do is you recreate 4chan, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a reason these fucking people aren't in group chats.
Right.
So the first 30 minutes of West Ham in September 2022 were an incredibly sexist, racist time, to which I just kind of took the shovel and removed a lot of people very quickly and started adding in people that I knew were more sane. I think Paul Dillon Ennis has described it as just a group chat of people that are deeply knowledgeable about crypto. And then everyone else tells me whatever they interpret it as being. Like, fundamentally, like, the answer is, and I've said this elsewhere, it's just a group chat. That's all it is. People then kind of layer on all this other stuff, which is deeply flattering, such as, it's an example of, like, the ethos of crypto, or like this Western chunk of crypto Twitter. Someone said, that West Ham is one of the only crypto Twitter brands that is not evil. Again, like these are all very nice to hear,
Yeah.
but I think this kind of leads to maybe a wider point, right? When you start any new hobby or any new industry, you need to find your tribe, right? And one of the big discoverability problems with crypto Twitter is that when you start, you know, you may have had a Twitter account for ages, but if you finally start like kind of telling the algo that you're interested in crypto Twitter, it will give you the worst people imaginable, actual war criminals, like our bit boys,
Oh God.
and what have you, and it will just shut out our ladies of crypto, our wizard of Soho. So it's just like unbearable people, and it will say like these are the people that you should pay attention to. So a lot of people often feel around, going like, who should I listen to, who should I trust, and so I occasionally just try to like dump people into things. And so like a lot of people ask, how do you get into West Ham? And the answer is you're chosen randomly. You are observed and added, and it's not a good thing, right? Like it doesn't benefit you to be added there because like it absorbs so much of your time. I
Yeah.
don't actually post there as much as I think I do, although I am sure now everyone's going to call me out as an absolute bullshitter.
Yeah, I think you're bullshitting because every time I'm in there, you're in there, and
I haven't
like
spoken to my wife in 6 days.
oh jeez. I was added after having I think Burb on the podcast, and she was telling me about West Ham, and then I got added after that, and then I was subsequently kicked because I think I wasn't active enough because I'm
Yes.
not as chronically online as you and everybody else is.
Yep.
And then I asked to rejoin, and this cycle happened. I would want to say at least 3 to 5 times.
Yep. And it's one of those like nothing personal memes. It's very much like West Ham has been fundamentally. It's a place to kind of talk. It's a place to vent. There's a bunch of people that are stunningly high up in firms that you know of, who are occasionally like just venting about work without kind of revealing where they work or what's happening. People post pictures of their children. Like my one hard and fast rule, I have two hard and fast rules. Don't sleep with each other because it just makes things awkward. And the other one is don't shitcoin in the channel. Like there are like 100 dedicated Telegram chats for this. Shitcoining, any conference we attend, any event that we want to put together. And I do find it funny that, like we end up putting events now together for ETH Denver. We're going to do something in a DevCon. It's kind of like very much kind of evolved out of my control.
Yeah.
Not that it was ever something that I wanted to control. I was just bored and drunk one night and decided to do a bit. And now that bit has become apparently one of my more important contributions to crypto Twitter.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things that I've noticed about West Ham is that most group chats that you're part of, or most just like friend groups within crypto Twitter, are very like values aligned. I guess you can say it like that, but basically just people who think the same way and people who
Yep.
believe the same thing. West Ham is the only group chat I'm in and I've ever been in where you have people from both ends of the spectrum, like extreme ends of the spectrum, who are somehow coexisting in the same group chat and getting along at least well enough to still
Yep.
be staying in the same group chat. And I think there's that like there's actually a lot that crypto can learn from West Ham in this regard. Just like how to get along with each other that you disagree with. We can have differing viewpoints and still coexist and learn from each other, in on different topics.
It also helps that the unifying thread is that I will steal your content and get 1,000 likes for it. Like, it's. I
Right.
mean,
Like
I
it's a good example though of like we can all just shit post together, joke together, not take everything so seriously, and like that. Like why can't the rest of crypto Twitter and the rest of the internet do that?
I think one of the things is that, most of crypto Twitter and most of crypto is fundamentally financialized, right? The incentives are completely bugged. Like, if you have an audience, it is an extreme pull towards kind of like locking in the bag by selling out almost. I've heard the numbers that I could be offered for doing things like KOL retweets or what have you, and it's tempting. Like, I won't pretend it's not. But I think one of the things that I like to enforce is just very much to celebrate your financial wins or whatever. Like we'll help with these. We've been doing this ongoing 2 year bit about how there's a $30,000 happy birthday fund in West Ham. There is not, but like one day there will be. I think if you strip away the financial kind of dependency aspect of it and just realize that fundamentally we are all very silly people on a very silly website owned by a very silly man, doing something that again, like, it remains to be seen what like kind of true global adoption would look like, regardless of the talking points in the American election or anything of the sorts. If you've got that as your kind of common trait, it's very easy to get along on pretty much any other aspects of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I mean, I would highly encourage anybody. Sorry, I was just looking through some of these questions that people posted on Twitter as I'm getting ready to
To
maybe
wrap up.
to maybe ask you a few of those to see if if there's even a single one that's appropriate to ask on the podcast. Which I haven't come to one yet. But
Pretty
oh,
down.
you know what? Here's a normal one. This is from Tim, who's a member of the Rehash community, who's not in West Ham, which is how you know he's normal. What's the best DeFi meme? The funniest DeFi meme that you've seen?
Oh God. I feel like anything that I say now is not going to be my right answer. So I'll tell you what I'll do, Tim. After this, I will think of it and I will post with about the Rehash episode with an instance of it that's specific to this episode. That's the best I think I can do.
Okay, let's do it. I'm down for that. 303 wants to know, gun to your head, U.S. election winner. And this episode, wait, hold on. Let me see if this episode is going to come out before or after the election. I think this is going to come out after the election, so make sure you say the right answer.
Okay. I think Trump. I'm not going to say anything about whether I want it to be Trump or not, simply because I don't want that smoke, but I do think it's going to go his way.
Yeah.
When it comes out and it turns out that it is Trump, I will look like a genius. If it turns out that's not, I will be bombing the Twitter headquarters and removing all presence of this video.
Unfortunately, these videos will be published on chain, so it's going to be you'll have to dive back into your coding days and hack.
I was about to say something that would very nearly get my account suspended in terms of what else I was going to bomb, so I'm just going to leave that at that, and I think we should probably end the episode.
I'm going to do one more for the West Ham people.
Yeah.
This one is about why you are obsessed with sniffing women. This one's for the hammers. I'm doing one inappropriate one.
Have you smelled them? They're amazing. Why would you not? My wife's going to watch this. I'll have you all know. Thank you very much for doing this to me.
Yeah, no worries.
Fantastic.
No worries. You can yell at whoever it was in the West Ham chat that and your beer as well, wherever you got that from. Lots of people to sue for this episode.
Well, I'd like to just end this episode by saying that absolutely nothing that I've said here has been my true beliefs. Everything that I say is a parody of my true impressions, and in order to find out what I really think, you will have to send money to my address, which I will post on chain shortly after this. Thank you very much for your time, and it's been wonderful to be here. Goodbye.
It's Laurence Euler Day. LawrenceEulerDay.eth. For anybody who would like to donate to his fund for his twins that are incoming. He would very much appreciate that. Tell people, Laurence, tell people where they can find you for real on the interwebs and where they can go to learn more about Wildcat as well.
Yep. So on Twitter, I am Function0. Both of the O's are zeros because I am an unbearable man. Laurence E. Day on LinkedIn, if you choose to go down that route. My personal website is lawrence.day. Wildcat is available at wildcat.finance. All of these are very straightforward, I will confess. Beyond that, yeah, if you manage to find my home address, you're welcome to come and visit me there. I'll probably buy you a pint. But that's where you can find me on the internet.
Awesome. I will take it upon myself to figure out where you live and show up and demand that pint. And hopefully you don't sniff me because that would be weird.
I guarantee nothing, Diana.
All right, I'll take my chances. I'm a risk taker. That's why I'm in crypto. Lastly, one word going into 2025. What is the one word that you think is going to describe 2025?
For crypto in general?
For crypto in general, yeah.
Consolidation. I think I hate thinking about permissionless finance through an American-centric lens, but whoever wins the US election is massively going to impact the way this all shakes out one way or the other.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how it shakes out. And fingers crossed. I mean, I don't even know where I'm crossing my fingers.
I don't know where your
but-
fingers crossed to. Like, it's so hard to decide, right?
Right. It's whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, and we'll
Exactly.
just have to figure it out.
Yep.
So, well, thank you so much, Laurence, for taking the time. We didn't have any interruptions from your kid. Congrats.
No, I'm gonna go
Shout out
now
to your daughter.
celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to her. I will see you in the West Ham chat. I'll try to be online more, but thank you for not kicking me out anymore after I've, had to beg to get back in like 5 times. I'm glad I finally have a permanent position there. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
She thinks it's permanent, everyone.
Yeah, I think it's permanent. Yeah, and I go and check Twitter right after this, and I'm out probably. That's fine. I'll beg again to get back in. But thanks, Laurence, for taking the time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to
Diana.
you soon.
Yep, everyone, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Laurence. All right, I've just gone off air. Just stopped the
Grand.
recording. Thank you so much for that. That was so fun.
I really enjoyed